All right, so today is Friday, October 27th, 2023. This is the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. So it's the last day of the week. This has been a very interesting week, to say the least. I think what we're starting to come to the realization of collectively, right, is that there really does appear to be some modicum of staying power as it relates to the price of Bitcoin as well as to hash prices. Now, it's a little bit too early to declare victory and say, hey, hash prices are going to remain robust, from here until the end of the year. That said, though, I do think it's important that we think a bit about hash price as it relates to the Bitcoin halving, which will absolutely take place sometime early next year, probably April of next year. So we are all very, very good, it seems, right, at correctly pointing out that the block rewards are being cut in half. What I think we collectively, myself included, sometimes don't talk enough about is that in addition to the potential for the price of Bitcoin itself to rise, and as a result of that, help counterbalance the cut in block rewards, there's a pretty reasonable case to be made that network hash rate, right, that the Bitcoin network hash rate itself will likely diminish maybe by 10, 15, maybe upwards of 20%. How can that be? Why would that be? And that's not just me saying that. You can do a search on the internet and come to those types of analytical conclusions yourself. But it does kind of make sense, right? That if I've got some really dated hardware that's maybe barely kind of hanging on, and I'm running those machines right now, given the environment that we're in, but after the halving, then it really goes from being marginal to just not economic at all. Even if the price of Bitcoin were to really shoot up, right? It still really wouldn't do the trick, so to speak. So you could conceivably see network hash rate come down relatively quickly after the halving. I'm not saying that the network hash rate is going to be cut in half or anything like that. Far from it, right? But I think that's something else that needs to be taken into consideration when we have this conversation, because it is easy to just say, okay, the halving's coming up, the block rewards are cut in half, and that's it. A lot of companies are going to go out of business. Well, hey, a lot of them very well may go out of business. But it's, I think, intellectually dishonest to focus solely on the cut in block rewards without really taking a look at the broader picture, right? And really thinking about, okay, well, what will the price of Bitcoin be doing? What will the Bitcoin network hash rate look like? Because remember, those are two really key variables insofar as determining and calculating hash price. Transaction fees are another component that we don't often talk a lot about, but I do think there's an argument to be made that as we go into 2024, we could start to see some acceleration when it comes to transaction fees, right? That they're going to become sort of like a bigger part of the story. Now, we've had a little bit of this sort of like narrative in the past, right? This idea that, hey, maybe transaction fees are going to become a major part of the entire like Bitcoin miner reward system, as opposed to just being like maybe 1, 2, maybe 3% of the story. And we saw that really peak or spike, I should say, back in around May of 2023 of this year. When we really did see an acceleration in the network, in the Bitcoin transaction fee marketplace, right? And that was really good for Bitcoin miners, but it was very short-lived. So that's something else that we need to take into consideration, again, as we approach the halving. Now, I'm taking a quick look, with sort of like a fresh perspective at some of the comments to yesterday's broadcast. I see here one comment, pump and dump investment will probably never see $10 a share. And then I see a response saying, based on your no doubt extensive research on the company, clearly couldn't be a blind opinion. This kind of gets into what I was alluding to yesterday. I am very much into the idea of having a robust two-way conversation and really understanding different perspectives as it relates to Stronghold Digital Mining, the stock price, our market cap. It's hard to have a meaningful, intellectually stimulating, right, and engaging conversation about this type of topic when I'm at least attempting to present some, right, fact-based data. I'm attempting to support what I'm saying with references to things that have actually happened, right? And to then have a conversation where then somebody else is like just kind of saying something without any actual supporting evidence. I'm not saying they have to go, like crazy with this where you have all these citations, but at least, right, if there's some reference point that we could both then collectively say, all right, hey, let's take a look at the evidence you're presenting. Let me take a look at it. Because see, ultimately, I value the truth. My high school, our motto was whatsoever things are true. Whatsoever things are true. And, when you put truth, right, as something to be strived for, it's less about, hey, I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. It's more like, hey, let's collectively try to discern the truth of all of this. And I certainly am very open to other points of view, right? Different ways of looking at this, because that helps inform, the way I look at things. But it is a little frustrating when, again, we just have like these blanket statements that aren't necessarily supported with a whole lot of like data, right? Here's a really good comment. It seems investors focus on long-term value to society. Gamblers focus on current and recent past stock price. Just know which group you're in. Not knocking the gamblers. When investors are correct, they make many multiples of the expected gain of gamblers. But sometimes gamblers get lucky and outperform. Most of the time, they end up losing on trades. So, I've described my financial investment in Stronghold Digital Mining as a gamble. Now, to the extent I'm gambling, I'm certainly a gambler who's doing an intense, like almost like unheard of amount of research, right? Not just prior to placing my investment, but on an ongoing basis. So when I say I'm gambling, yeah, like, hey, look, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think anybody does, right? With the way things are going in the world, I mean, hey, you could wake up to a mushroom cloud tomorrow, so to speak. So again, not to sound all doomer or, overly negative, but let's kind of keep it real too, right? We don't really know what tomorrow will bring. That being said, I think that even those of us who might think of ourselves as, hey, well, I'm gambling on this, there is, I think, a way to do it so that you're at least feeling comfortable with what you're doing. To be fair, I'm probably not gambling in the sense of like, hey, I want to kind of speculate on where Stronghold Digital Mining stock price is going to be in the next, say, 30 minutes. Right? So far, like I've had a very large holding almost now for like a year. So that's, right, that doesn't really fit into the traditional definition of gambling, so to speak. But point being, and I think this comment is right on point, that there is sometimes, for understandable reasons, a bit of a fixation on, hey, man, I want to just get a short-term hit, right? Hey, if I can make a good, quick 20, 30% on this, that would be awesome. And I hear you, right? I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think, right, that in this type of environment, sometimes tremendous potential returns can be derived from, as the old saying goes, doing the work, right? Putting the work in, trying to figure things out for yourself, right? And really coming to a conclusion as to what you think might become of this business. And in my case, I kind of took it a step further. I'm like, I don't want to just be passive and see what happens. I got to start communicating my perspectives and observations into the marketplace, right? With the goal of at least being a somewhat more balanced and reasonable and positive voice as it relates to Stronghold Digital Mining. There's no shortage of those who will shout from the rooftops that this company is destined for bankruptcy, that this company is they stopped mining for Bitcoin. They gave back all their Bitcoin mining machines. The list goes on and on and on and on. So yeah, that's a really good comment. Let's see, is there anything else that was posted? Yeah, okay, so this is a really good observation. So without Bitcoin, the power assets cannot make money. They would need to be shut down. That is why SDIG was able to buy them so cheaply. Okay, so for context, I believe that's a reference, obviously, right, to like, in this case, like Panther Creek, Scrubgrass, right, these waste coal reclamation facilities. Hey, you know, if it weren't for Bitcoin, they'd be essentially shut down. Now, I will say, I do track in a far less, immersive manner, at least one other waste coal reclamation facility that's really, really close to me right here. I mean, Panther Creek's close, but this is really close. And they're still in business. They're still operating, but they operate in a capacity that I think is probably best described as something of a peaking facility. They probably do get paid by the grid to be available to supply energy when the grid asks for it. I think their arrangement's a little bit different, but they're hanging on, right? They're still doing what they do. There are two other facilities that I also, from afar, kind of keep an eye on, and they appear to be operating as well. But again, at best, these are now peaking facilities, right? Not baseload facilities. What Bitcoin has enabled Scrubgrass to do and Panther Creek to do is to essentially operate as 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, baseload facilities. And that's a really good thing. Both from an environmental perspective, hey, it means we're cleaning up more toxic stuff, right? But it's also critical for the business, right? Because you want to have that optionality of saying, hey, we're producing electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We could use it to mine Bitcoin, or we could use it, right, to sell to the grid, so to speak. So, okay, look, that's going to be all for today. I hope you have an awesome weekend. Until next week, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we're going to see each other again here on Monday.